When buying a home with a mortgage, your lender will need to order an appraisal to determine whether the amount you agreed to pay for this home is what that home is actually worth. However, there are times a bad appraisal causes issues with the lending process and potentially kills the deal altogether. How can this be avoided? So the first thing that can happen as far as a bad appraisal is concerned is you can have a low appraised value. It's the number one thing that can happen with an appraisal that would consider a bad appraisal. But what causes a low appraised value? Well, for one, it could just be that there aren't properties to support the value that you decide to go under contract for. That's pretty simple. But let's just say that's not the case. Let's just say there are comparables to support it. What on the appraisal report itself might constitute it being a bad appraisal? So it'd be things like inaccurate property information. Let's just say the property you're buying is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home, but the appraiser listed it as a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home. That would be inaccurate information. The comparables that the appraiser might have selected, so a comparable, by the way, are the other homes that were used to help support the contract price. That's what an appraisal is. The appraiser, the person who goes out and looks at the property and goes and pulls comparable sales, is gonna pull typically the 3 best. There could be more, but most weight is given to the first 3 comparables, which need to be like your home. But let's just say that the comparables the appraiser selected aren't really comparables. They're not the most recent sales. Maybe they were dilapidated properties like foreclosures where the one you're buying is completely renovated, right? Those wouldn't be good comparables. Or maybe there's better ones that sold at higher prices, and for whatever reason, the appraiser selected the 3 lowest sales as the most recent and used those as your comps, right? That can cause a low appraisal or a bad appraisal. The condition of the property. Maybe the property's in excellent condition, but the appraiser used comparables that were in poor condition, right? Like I said, like a foreclosure, dilapidated property, or not even that extreme. But if you have a condition 1 versus a condition 2, that can make a difference in the valuation you get on that property. The appraiser's experience, just like with any industry, the less experienced an appraiser is, especially in the area where the property is located, although the appraiser should be from within the immediate area, every so often you get an appraiser who's less experienced in a specific location where the property might be, and that can result in a lower appraisal. Limited recent sales. Ideally, you want the sales that are within the last 6 months of comparable homes, but what if there aren't any? Well, it's gonna make it more difficult to appraise that property and could result in a lower appraised value if the older sales were at lower prices, even if the market's improved, right? That can result in a low appraisal. What if the property you're buying is unique or custom? It's gonna be hard to find true comparables to that because it is such a unique or custom property where the other homes are completely different. So how do you do that? What's an accurate portrayal of the value if there's not an exact or similar home to the one that you're buying? Or things like that are subjective could be taken into consideration and affect the value. When the appraiser goes out to the home, what if the home's messy that they're gonna appraise, or it's dirty inside? There's things all around the outside. It needs fresh paint. Well, we know that the dirtiness, the messiness, fresh paint, that's gonna all be easy. It's easy to clean those things up, but it's hard to unsee those things. And it could actually have an effect on the value the appraiser gives, although it shouldn't, right? So what happens if you have a bad or low appraisal like we talked about, right? And you're trying to get a mortgage, right? That's really the time you're doing an appraisal, right? You can have one done just for informational purposes, but it really matters most when you're getting a mortgage on a property. Nearly every time you get a mortgage with less than 20% down, you're going to need an appraisal. So what happens if that appraisal comes in low? Well, you could buy a property over the appraised value because purchasing a home over the appraised value is not unheard of, but you do need to understand that the lender is always going to lend based on the lower of what the purchase price is or the appraised value. So a short appraisal can increase the amount of money needed out of your pocket for a home purchase. Let me give you an example of how this would work. So let's just say that you purchased a home, or you're purchasing a home, and the appraisal comes in low. So let's say it's a $500,000 purchase and you're putting $100,000 down. So $100,000 is 20% of $500,000, right? 20% down on this property. But the appraisal comes in at $475,000, which is $25,000 less than the $500,000 that you're under contract for. Well, let's say you agreed to pay over the appraised value. You said, you know what, I'm I'm okay with the fact that it underappraised. I'm still going to pay $500,000 for the property because I feel that it's worth that, or it's going to be worth that in the very near future. Well, that's fine. But like I said, the lender can only lend against the lower of the appraised value or the purchase price. So in this case, $475,000 appraised value is lower than the $500,000 contract price. So we'd be lending against the 475. So 400,000, which was your original loan amount, into 475,000 is actually 85% loan to value. Now we can still do that loan. However, you'd be required to pay mortgage insurance because you're now at 85% loan to value. And anytime you get a conventional mortgage with less than 20% down, you have to pay mortgage insurance. Well, now you're gonna be paying mortgage insurance on that property. Or if you don't want to have to pay mortgage insurance, well, in that case, you can go ahead and put an extra $20,000 down in order to make sure that you're at 80% loan to value, meaning you're borrowing 80% of that appraised value or below, because it would take $20,000 to get down to a $380,000 loan amount, which is 80% of $475,000. Let's say the appraisal came in low and you do not want to pay over the appraised value, and the seller of the property will not reduce the price, but you, the seller, and the realtors involved in the transaction are adamant about the fact that the appraisal should have come in at $500,000 and that there are sales to support that. Well, you can always appeal a low appraised value. So how do you appeal a low appraised value? Well, you need to speak with your lender and you need to provide them with 3 comparable sales that were not already used in the report to go ahead and support that higher value that you're expecting. They have to be true comparables, like we talked about. If you're buying a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, the comparable sales should be 4-bedroom, 3-bath homes. They should be within the last 6 months. They have to be true comparables. Another thing you can push back with if there aren't comparables, let's say that the comparables used in a report were just wrong. There was incorrect information, right? They said that a property was 3,000 square feet for one of the comparables, but the actual square footage was 2,000, which caused the line adjustments that are made on an appraisal report to be further off than what they should have been, affecting the value of your property that you're purchasing, right? There can be multiple reasons. So you can use an appeal to do that. You want to work with a lender who's willing to do that for you. It is extra work on their part, but there's been plenty of times that we've been successful for clients in appealing low appraisals for both bad comps and for bad information in the report. But at the end of the day, it's really your realtor's responsibility to negotiate a price for the home you're buying that's based on recent sales in the immediate area. Because depending on the market, you might be willing to pay more for the home, but the recent sales are really going to have to support whatever it is that you're buying. And in the cases where you are willing to pay more, well, you should expect to see a low appraised value come in. If you already know you're getting into a contract for more than what the most recent sales are, you should not expect that property to appraise for what the contract price is. It should just be expected that you're going to pay more for the property and that it's going to appraise low. So if you had an experience with a low appraisal, make sure to please leave a comment below. I'd like to hear about it. I want to hear what your lender's workarounds were in those scenarios and if you ended up closing on the property. And don't forget to subscribe for more money saving and problem solving videos just like this one.